On a somber winter afternoon, December 5, 1945, the normally busy grounds of Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station pulsed with anticipation, unaware that events about to unfold would be etched into both local memory and global legend. A story that would cross the threshold from fact to folklore, haunting the very idea of what the sea may conceal. A wet wind swept through the palms, and a thick overcast sky pressed low, adding a veil of secrecy to the ordinary routine of military life. Under those heavy clouds, a squadron of 5 TBM Avenger aircraft, sturdy, robust, engineered for war, prepared for what was supposed to be a standard training flight over the Atlantic's familiar waters. Flight 19, as they were designated, comprised 14 men, many of whom were seasoned by the fires of the Second World War, men who knew both the sweet triumph of returning home and the sobering discipline of routine. Their eyes had scanned the world from cockpit windows thousands of times before. Their leader, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, was a man who could read the sky and see in ways few could. He sat at the controls of his Avenger, calm and ready, overseeing a familiar exercise meant to sharpen navigational prowess, not test fate. Their intended journey, a precise triangular route, first flying east for bombing practice over the shallow crystalline sandbars known as Hens and Chickens Shoals, then north, before swinging southwest on the return. A geometry as unthreatening as any lesson in school. Their cruised altitude, their time over target, their return window, all standard. At 2:10 p.m., engines hummed to life, and by 2:10 p.m., these men were airborne, tiny specks in the vast gray sky, leaving behind steady ground for the whispered unknown of the open water. For the first hour, nothing remarkable was noted. Over the churning Atlantic, the planes threaded the invisible lines of their route, communication crisp, formation tight. The world below appeared as it always had, bands of turquoise, the glisten of sun off ever-rolling swells, the coral reefs lying dormant as judicious hazards, but certainly not ominous. Then, as the minutes trickled past, something elusive crept into the mission's narrative, barely noted at first, but soon impossible to ignore. Around 3:40 p.m., Flight 19's radio man picked up hesitant transmissions from Taylor, no longer the voice of absolute control, but one tinged with anxiety. The squadron leader reported both magnetic compasses had failed, an event so rare and so inexplicable that doubt must have shadowed every cockpit. "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost," crackled through the headset, a phrase that would come to echo through decades. Taylor went further. "Everything looks strange. Even the ocean doesn't look right." Other voices joined the confusion. Another pilot, too, reported instrument distress, compasses spinning or pointing nowhere they should. Despite unremarkable weather and clear skies, the men seemed to have crossed a threshold, departing familiar one, entering a realm where reality bent strangely. Taylor, convinced they'd drifted south over the Florida Keys, urged a northward course. But in truth, their vector carried them further east, out over the deep blue of the Atlantic, away from any chance of sighting land. Stress and uncertainty bred dissonance. Debate swirled over the open frequencies. Should they turn west as standard protocol dictated when lost, or trust Taylor's mistaken conviction about their position? The minutes ticked away. Fuel gauges fell, and the once confident voices faded into an escalating haze of fear and static. "Holding 270, we're all going down together," one said in a final grim consensus. No further messages came. 5 planes, 14 men, simply vanished amid the endless sky and heaving water, leaving nothing but unnerving silence and scattered shock in their wake. The moment the radio waves stilled, panic rippled through Fort Lauderdale. Flight operations scrambled a search and rescue response, chief among them a huge PBM Mariner flying boat, immortalized for its long range and reliability. It too was crewed by men who had faced danger in many forms, now steeling themselves to peer into the same ravenous ocean. Yet as they pushed into the evening's gathering darkness, radar screens back at the base blinked. Reports from an oil tanker offshore described a distant explosion, a sudden plume and a sprawling slick. Yet when investigated, nothing surfaced but more questions and an eerie absence. The search effort ballooned. More than 300 aircraft and vessels scoured hundreds of miles, from the shallows of the shoals to the limitless abyss beyond the Bahamas. The days dragged on, hope ebbing and flowing with each fruitless sweep of sonar, each failed comb of debris field. Not a single piece of evidence emerged, not a floating shard, not a life vest, not a signal flare in the night sky. Official queries issued somber findings. Theories abounded, each with its measure of plausibility, but none absolute. Perhaps the compasses failed in some arcane twist of the Earth's own magnetic fabric, a geomagnetic anomaly swallowing their bearings whole. Some meteorologists pointed to the region's notorious capacity for microstorms, pockets where weather shifts in a heartbeat, conjuring winds capable of snapping wings or capsizing hulls. Oceanographers suggested another culprit: methane hydrate eruptions, gas bubbling violently to the surface, making the sea momentarily as light as air, obliterating any object floating above. Others suspected the psychological toll, a quick succession of instrument issues, fatigue, mistaken geography, misread maps, frantic decisions stacking atop each other until only chaos remained. Yet, nothing could be proven. Every possibility offered an answer that, while logical, always felt incomplete. Overshadowed by the enormous improbability of two planes and their 27 combined souls disappearing so entirely, time and again facts bent into the same hollow refrain: unknown, unknown, unknown. It was here, at the intersection of evidence and absence, that legend found purchase. The Flight 19 calamity gave teeth and claws to what would become the myth of the Bermuda Triangle, a trapezoidal swath from Florida through Bermuda to Puerto Rico and back, a zone where the boundaries between known and unknown appeared diaphanously thin. In the years afterward, the area became a magnet for stories both plausible and impossible. Accounts surfaced of empty ships gently rolling on the waves, their crews vanished without trace. Pilots spoke of compass readings drifting erratically, of eerie banks of mist swallowing instruments whole, or of radio signals echoing back garbled nonsense. Reports poured in of engines failing, clouds shifting in unnatural ways, great vessels sinking in seas calm enough to paint. The phrase Bermuda Triangle was stamped on the world's imagination, not merely as a geographical curiosity, but as a potent reminder of nature's unfathomable depths. Science, ever the counterweight, pressed explanations, each offering an uneasy sense of closure, but never the certainty craved by those left behind. Surveys of the triangle point to magnetic field fluctuations, weather phenomena like sudden squalls and rogue waves, waters more treacherous in the ambiguity of navigation than in brute force. For centuries, seafarers and flyers have internalized such hazards, learning to map them, predict them, survive them. But what of mysteries left unsolved? When naval records and flight logs end only with question marks, when black boxes vanish and last words are lost to static, a shadow grows, impervious to bright reason. Amidst the lack of physical remains, popular imagination flourished. Some theorized that the region was a kind of seam in the fabric of reality, a gateway to another dimension, where ordinary rules disintegrate, where time and space coil and twist into impossible shapes. Paranormal investigators speculated about moments of convergence, transient windows where the triangle's ancient energies flare into dominance and swallow all within reach. Others, less earthbound, saw the hand of extraterrestrials at play, citing radio logs filled with strange fragmentary utterances, voices filled with tremor and awe as evidence of contact or contamination from beyond the stars. Despite the varied nature of these stories, they converge on a single point: humanity's dread at the unknown and the sea's infinite appetite for secrets. In the weeks and months after the disappearances, the families of those lost searched for closure that would never come. Memorial stones marked the site at Fort Lauderdale. The names of 27 men inscribed in granite, etched not only as a tribute, but as a scar left on the hearts of loved ones, and the minds of witnesses. In commemorative ceremonies, veterans and visitors pause for a silent minute, their gazes lost in the farthest reaches of the horizon, as if willing the past to surface. But the ocean, as always, keeps its counsel. Across the region, stories are passed down like an inheritance. Fishermen out of Miami tell of odd compasses and cloud banks that roll in like a living thing, unforecasted and malicious. Yacht owners phrase their routes with a wary respect, murmuring about the triangle in low voices. Pilots, young and old, are taught the hard lessons of redundancy. Bring extra fuel, check and double-check, know that certainty is only ever a possibility, not a promise. What endures year after year is not just suspicion over the area itself, but a sense of humility, of our fundamental smallness in a universe woven through with mysteries no map can chart. The Bermuda Triangle thus stands more than 7 decades later as a monument as much to the limits of science as to the power of myth. An unsolved riddle binding the past to the present, warning the future to tread with care. On each December 5th, memories sharpen as people return, in thought or in person, to the site of the Flight 19 disappearance. In the hush before dawn, or in the last golden hour before twilight, the names are whispered again. The old rituals, laying wreaths upon the restless water, recounting the tales for another generation, are undertaken not just in remembrance, but as an acknowledgement of awe. The sea, after all, is more than a surface or a depth. It is a vessel for all we do not and may never understand. What happened to Flight 19? The question reverberates, not just across the waves, but deep in the psyche. A shiver across the skin of collective knowledge, a lingering sense that, beneath the statistics and search maps, the world is still wild, still capable of taking without warning. Is it navigational error? Magnetic oddity? Meteorological violence? Some whisper that it may never matter. What matters is the enduring riddle, the marker, the memory, and the lesson. The Bermuda Triangle persists as a challenge and a caution. Where facts end, story begins, and in stories lay both warning and wonder. The loss of Flight 19 and the failed rescue that followed are reminders, not just of aviation vulnerabilities, but of the boundaries between comprehension and the unexplainable. As long as the Atlantic Ocean rolls, and as long as the skies overhead tempt men and women to cross them, the questions will remain floating silently on the winds, waiting for an answer that may never come, echoing endlessly among the waves.